We're ending this hour with our series Flipping the Script, featuring people on screen, on stage, and behind the scenes, shining a spotlight on diversity. Enter Anjana Vasan. She is a London-based actress who's won numerous awards for her work in theater, including A Streetcar Named Desire, which just closed here in New York. Her on-screen credits include We Are Lady parts on Peacock and Black Mirror, and Wicked Little Letters, both on Netflix. That last one of my favorites. Now she's in a new limited series on BritBox called Towards Zero, which is based on the book by Agatha Christie. Anjana joins us now. So lucky to have you with us. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
You are busy.
Yes, I'm very blessed to be busy, and I'm very blessed to spend so much time in New York. Been in New York for the last month, and I've had just the best time.
We'll talk about theater in just a moment, but let's start with Towards Zero, which is, Agatha Christie styled. You don't want to give too much away because it is Agatha Christie, but what is this story about?
So, like any classic Agatha Christie, it's a whodunit, but in our case, I think the story is who's going to do it. So it's a slight reframing of what we might expect from a classic Agatha Christie. And the story kind of kicks off with this big celebrity divorce. The tennis star Neville Strange divorces his childhood sweetheart, Audrey, and he remarries with the person he had an affair with, Kay. But in a strange turn of events, all three of them decide to go to Gulls Point, to his aunt's estate by the coast, Lady Tressilian's house, played by the iconic Angelica Houston.
Ooh.
And obviously there, these... a crew of very dysfunctional, strange people gathered together around a dinner table, and you just know by the end of the first episode that something terrible is about to happen.
These dinner parties always just have dysfunctional people, don't they? What attracted you to this specific character? Talk about your role in this.
Mary plays the lady's companion to Lady Tressilian, which was, at that time, women of a certain class and upbringing, if you weren't married, there were very few options for you. You could be a companion to an older woman, or you could be a governess. And Mary finds herself in that position. And, there's genuine friendship and affection to Lady Tressilian, but she finds that she's been in this role as essentially a paid friend for a little longer than she thought she might. And she's single, and she's looking for love, and she's looking to live life on her own terms. And so when we meet Mary, she's at a crossroads in life, and she doesn't know what life will look for her if she leaves. And I think there's a big question mark on where Mary's going to go and what she's about to do. And there's maybe a will they, won't they situation with Thomas, an estranged family member who comes to Gulls Point that summer as well. So there's a lot going on. But also the reason why I said yes to the job, the scripts were beautiful. I've always wanted to do an Agatha Christie, but also it was a chance to work with Angelica Houston.
Of course, who doesn't want that? And this is like a period piece, kind of like Wicked Little Letters, right? Are you drawn to some of those?
Well, Wicked Little Letters and Agatha Christie, this was the first time I really got to delve into that time period, and I really enjoyed it because, the costumes do so much work for you. Yeah. And they often are
how long does it take to get in them, though?
They're not the most comfortable, but they do a lot of homework for you. But at the same time, there's always a good ensemble of actors. And I think Sam Yates, our director, and similar to the case of Wicked Little Letters, it's a fantastic group of actors. Matthew Rhys is in it playing the inspector. It's an actor that, I deeply admire. So I couldn't sort of miss the opportunity to work with these people.
Someone so many people know from The Americans here as well. So all right, let's talk about We Are Lady parts. You play a Muslim woman who happens to fall in love with a punk rock band made up of 4 other Muslim women. When you first got this script, what went through your mind?
It was a story that I thought I would never read ever in my career. It was led by 5 women of color, and it was an authentic story and an original story that seemed to avoid all the tropes and stereotypes that I've encountered in scripts before, written and directed by the amazing Nida Manzoor, and it was funny and original, and it had great music and had great soundtrack, and again, led by 5 women, which is so rare to see on TV.
They have different relationships with their faith, too. How important is it to see that diversity on screen?
Absolutely, because faith is ultimately very personal, and I think that, especially in this time and age, when there's such a kind of demonizing of people of a certain faith, I think this show shows so much, as people, not just as people who wear a hijab or people who are of Muslim heritage, but genuine, complicated people who are complex and individual in their own right, and I think it showed people of color as different, not just all cut from the same cloth.
Let's talk about your stage work. You just did A Streetcar Named Desire with Paul Mescal. You won an Olivier Award, not to mention many others for your work. Talk about what that project has meant to you. We're seeing so many accomplished actors right now on Broadway, on the stage in theater. What is it about that draws so many actors? Because it's a different experience for an actor,
I mean, I started off in the theater.
Yeah.
Like, I always loved the theater. That's what I wanted to do. Film and TV came to me much later in my career. A lot of the theater work I did led to film and TV work. And I'm very, very grateful for that. And I love both mediums, I really do. But theater is my first love. And I fell in love with Tennessee Williams at a young age. It was one of the reasons why I wanted to be an actor. I loved his plays. I never thought in my wildest dreams I would get to be in a play by Tennessee Williams, let alone play Stella, let alone bring a play like that, you know, a great American classic to America. That was just, I couldn't have hoped for anything better.
You mentioned with We Are Lady Parts, you saw a script that you never thought you would see something like that. What is your message to people out there who think, I don't feel like I see myself on screen, in the movies, on the stage? Are things changing right now, and what would you say to people who are pushing to be just like you?
I think things are changing, and I think that representation is about opportunity. If those parts aren't written for you, there are less opportunity. I mean, it wasn't until We Are Lady Parts that I read a part that was like, oh, this was me. Like, I recognize myself in this character. But, you know, there's a whole generation of brilliant writers and directors who are coming up. And there's so much talent out there. I think the misconception in the past has been, you know, there is no talent. And actually what we've realized is there is talent out there. It's our responsibility as an industry to make opportunity for that talent. And I always say to young actors, if you have the ability and talent to write your own story, do that. Make yourself, like, bring yourself a seat to the table. So, you know, that's something that I wish I could do, is write my own script. So I always tell other younger actors to do that if they can.
Bring those stories to the table. I love that. Anjana Vasan, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank
Congratulations
you so much.
on all of your success, including the new Agatha Christie project.
Thank you so much.
We'll make sure to check it out. That is going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now.
But your news continues right now.